Motorhead Garage, the program that each week introduces you to and shows you how to install the latest in exciting and innovative products for your vehicle. Now here's your host, Dave Dobson.
Welcome to Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com. Now, if you are restoring or building a classic vehicle, you know the foundation is the most important thing, and that foundation is the chassis. And Anthony, you find once people start working on an old vehicle, what do they find when they pull the skin away and take a look at the chassis?
Well, the chassis, a lot of these older ones are rusted and need repair of some kind. We started out building front and rear suspensions that could be added to, say, like a 1950 model vehicle. And as we got into them, we found out that they were rusted. And I started designing a complete chassis that would use our front and rear suspension in it, so we could upgrade the front to better braking, better handling, so we converted it to a front steer rack and pinion. We can use late model Mustang brakes from 94 all the way up to 2014 Mustang brakes. There are options that we can do either one of them on this chassis, so we can go from 11 to a 14-inch rotor factory style brake on these, or any of the aftermarket brakes for them.
Now, a chassis from AJE Suspension is super adaptable. It's also very strong and it's lightweight. How do you make it so strong and still keep the weight off?
Well, we keep a 6-inch cross-sectional width on the vertical section of the frame, and we can change this 2-inch tube to adapt different cab mounts and different wheelbases and things like that that come into play for the different chassis that we're doing.
So what do folks need to tell you when they're doing a build or restoring a truck?
Well, mainly we need to know the year, then options that they're wanting, what engine, what kind of brakes, and just basic information of what they're going to want to end up with.
There's a lot of things you do at AJE Suspension that are unique, and one of the things I really love is you're using a lot of parts that folks can get at an auto parts store, so they don't have to go get a specialty part from you should something break or they get in an accident or something like that.
Correct. I mean, the main thing is that we use a hub from a 94 to 04 Mustang, and so that way we can adapt from the 11 to 13-inch brakes the way it comes. If you want to do an option to do the 14-inch brakes from a 2015 Mustang, we have a system for that also. But we use Mustang lower ball joints and we use Chrysler screw-in ball joints for the uppers, so anything that might wear or break is easily gotten from your auto parts stores.
And there's a unique design here. I haven't seen suspension that's quite laid out like this. So tell me about some of the special features you have here, especially to make it adjustable.
Okay, one of the things that we do on our upper control arm, we use a jack screw here, so they're left and right-handed threads, so they're easy to adjust camber on them. We use a Fox body style rack, and we can do a power or manual, but we put an extension on the passenger side to extend it out, but we keep the steering shaft over close to the frame rail, so you get a little bit more exhaust clearance and things like that.
And you make it super easy to mount any motor that folks might want to use.
Correct. We use our own engine mounting system, and we have mounts where you can put a new Godzilla, a Coyote, EcoBoost, LS, 3rd Gen Hemis, so we can mount just about anything you want with this chassis.
And we talked about rigidity here. Let's take a look at the X bracing that you have here. This is a unique design, very cool.
It's our own design, and then we do a safety loop on it, so your drive shaft runs through there, and if you have a U-joint problem or anything, it will keep it from hitting the ground.
And rigidity is super important when it comes to the rear end. You want to make sure you don't have any twisting back there.
We use a triangulated 4-link, similar to what's in the Fox bodies and the SN95 Mustangs, but we convert it to a coilover rear shock, and we have adjustable uppers so we can do different pinion angles, we can change ride heights. We do an anti-roll bar that we mount underneath it, so that helps handling. And with the coilover rear shocks, we can change spring rates, so if you want to put a little bit of weight in the bed, we can.
We mentioned the adaptability here of the chassis. How many different models of trucks do you deal with?
Our Ford line, we do 48 through 96. So the earlier ones were straight axles, the later ones were twin I-beams, but we can adapt to either one of them. Then in the Dodges, we can do 48 through 93 on those. And then we're 48 to 59 on the Chevrolet truck chassis.
Now, I know folks are restoring trucks more and more these days, but your bread and butter is the classic Mustang, and this is where it kind of started for AJE Suspension about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So tell me about this K-member and what makes it special.
Well, we started building these K-members back in the mid-90s. They've had a couple changes over the years, but our biggest difference between ours and everybody else is our engine mounting system. So if you want to put the 2300 4-cylinder in it, all we have to do is change the engine mounting plates. The K-member stays the same.
And the mounting plate is also something that makes this really easy to install. And it makes it stronger as well.
One of the differences in ours and some of the other ones is this hole right here is the one that locates the K-member. This one squares it up in the car. That's the way they were done as they went down the assembly line. So this actually bolts in and is square as long as your car is right.
Now, it's not just this era of Mustang. You also make for every era except for the Mustang 2 and also for a lot of other big 3 models. So if you got a classic car or truck, AJE Suspension is the place to go, AJEsuspension.com. Lots of places to find them on the web, and they've got something for you if you have a classic vehicle. We'll be right back with more Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com, so do not touch that dial.
Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com, is brought to you by Amsoil, the first in synthetics, Campbell's Custom Care, your detail specialist, and by DragonfireTools.com, industrial workbenches with integrated tool storage.
Let's talk about summertime. You know, a lot of folks like having fun in the sun, and I'm here to tell you, working in the sun, not so much fun. Maybe you're working on a car in the driveway, maybe you're working out of the bed of your truck on a job site, and shade can be really hard to find. So the solution until now has been to get one of those traditional 4-legged tents, and you know, those things are a pain. It's hard to put them up. It takes a couple people to do it. They're not that durable. They're going to break. Well, guess what? There's a solution. It's called the Shade Wagon. Now, the Shade Wagon isn't anything like the traditional 4-legged pop-up tent. First of all, it is dynamic. You can configure it in any number of ways to suit your needs and even change that configuration as the sun moves across the sky or as weather rolls in. The Shade Wagon can change height, it can change pitch angle, and it can even rotate to keep you covered. And unlike the 4-legged tent, you can set it up and tear it down all by yourself. Now, to set it up, all you have to do is pull it out of the case, adjust it to the height that you want, you pull out the arms, and you are set to throw some shade. Tear down is even faster and easier, and once the Shade Wagon is down, it folds right into its own case, and you're ready to wheel it away. Now, compare that with the 4-legged system. You'll never get back into the case. Trust me, it'll never, ever go back into the case. Now, I mentioned the Shade Wagon is dynamic. Well, check this out. This is called the utility hitch setup. You just slide the mast from your Shade Wagon into any 2-inch receiver. And with the way you can rotate the Shade Wagon, it'll keep you undercover not only when you're working at the back of your truck, but also on the side. Maybe you're changing a tire or working on the brakes or something like that. The Shade Wagon, I can tell you, is tough and it is built to last. The canopy itself is made of durable ripstop nylon, and all of the plastic on the Shade Wagon is fiberglass reinforced. All of the metal parts are stainless steel. The bonus is, if you do have an issue, which is unlikely, the Shade Wagon has a limited lifetime warranty, and every single part on the Shade Wagon is replaceable and easy to change out by yourself. Head on over to theshadewagon.com. That's where you'll find the utility hitch and the original, the one and only Shade Wagon. You can throw shade wherever you go. Go undercover with the Shade Wagon. Now let's talk about our paintedautoparts.com Motorhead of the Week. This week we featured Johnny Morgan out of Vinland, New Jersey. Now, Johnny builds custom cars and hot rods, and he's been doing it for over 40 years, ever since he was 16 years old. All you have to do is take a look at some of the before and afters to see what kind of work Johnny has done. Johnny tells me he's become disabled recently, so he hasn't been able to finish the car he's been working on for his daughter. He hasn't lost the dedication, but he has lost the ability to do the work on his own. So hear me out, New Jersey Motorheads. You know what to do. If you're in Johnny's neck of the woods, look for East Coast Hot Rods on Facebook and see if you can lend a hand. If you know a builder, a collector, or someone who just loves cars, or maybe someone who loves Motorhead Garage, just send us a note at motorheadgarage.tv. Tell us why they should be our paintedautoparts.com Motorhead of the Week. Still a whole lot more to come here on Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com, including the weekly appearance from our buddy John Gardner. You don't want to miss it.
Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com, coming to you from the Campbell's Custom Care Studio.
Motorhead Garage is presented by DragonfireTools.com. Just take a look at this beautiful 1964 Chevrolet Impala SS. Incredibly restored, and I tell you, this thing looks just like it did when it rolled off the assembly line and rolled down Main Street cruising in 1964. Now, we all know cruising just isn't cruising without some good music. And if you're doing a restoration or a build, you have a few different options in regards to the stereo. Now, you can buy an aftermarket stereo that has great sound, but it won't look the part that thing's going to stick out like a sore thumb on your vintage dash. And you can try to find an original radio, and good luck finding one that works or one you can afford. And to boot, it probably won't sound that great because it's using old technology. What's more, you won't have the conveniences you're used to, like Bluetooth, the ability to play your MP3 player or a CD or satellite radio or anything like that. But you can have it all with custom Autosound, a modern stereo that looks great and looks just like a vintage analog radio from the 1960s. This particular unit is a USA 630. Of course, it has Bluetooth capabilities, and it has 300 watts of peak power, which should be all you need. This thing fits right in your dash with no modifications, and it comes with a bezel or a trim piece with your car or truck's manufacturer's logo. You can see the Chevy logo right there. It looks great. Now, custom Autosound has been around for nearly 50 years, almost as long as this Impala. These things are durable, high-quality units that are made to last, and that's because every custom Autosound model undergoes extreme temperature testing, a temperature aging test, and, super important in a muscle car, a vibration test. Before it leaves the factory, each custom Autosound radio is hand-inspected and adjusted by a technician. Custom Autosound covers 400 plus makes and models. They have an amazing array of radios and speakers made to fit your vehicle and made to fit your budget. That's important too. There's 4 different models of in-dash radios, including the slide bar radio. And with the slide bar radio, you get a radio that looks just like an old analog radio when it's turned off. And when you slide the bar, you get a digital display that allows you to control every function of your radio, just like a modern radio. If you have a street rod or a classic and you want to leave the original radio in the dash, the secret audio radio is just for you. That unit hides usually under the seat or behind the dash, and you get your Bluetooth, AM, FM radio, iPod control, CD control, and it integrates perfectly with your speaker system. No one will even know it's there. Now, by the way, I mentioned speakers. Custom Autosound has speakers too, and just like their radios, their speakers are made to match your car's style or to hide under a seat if you want to keep the vehicle's original looks. Custom Autosound makes units for over 400 different makes and models. I guarantee you they're going to have one that looks great in your car or truck. You can find them at customautosound.com. And hey, look over there. There's everybody's favorite professor, John Gardner.
Here's the scenario. You're sitting at the stoplight and your brake pedal slowly going to the floor. Not a good thing. You know, when it comes to your brakes and all your fluids, peace of mind is key. Welcome to this Amsoil Tech Tip. We're talking about the brakes and the master cylinder. Let's start out with the basics. There's 2 types of systems. Since 1967, we had to split them up. What do? Well, we have a longitudinally split system. Now that's either your front wheels are on one system and your rear wheels are on the other system. Now the other one, that's a diagonally split system. That means that the right front is paired together with the left rear, and the left front is paired together with the right rear. Now what's going on in those 2 channels? Well, let's take a look inside this master cylinder right here. You can see it. There's 2 different chambers. This is the high pressure chamber, and this is the low pressure chamber. So you have a primary piston and a primary seal, and this is the high pressure chamber. You have a secondary piston, and you have a primary seal and a secondary seal. Now the primary seals is what we're worried about when it starts to go to the floor. What's happening is this high pressure chamber and this high pressure chamber is filled up with pressure, and it's actually bleeding by the seal into the low pressure chamber, hence that pedal slowly going to the floor. So what do you need to do? Well, you have to replace your brake master cylinder and then go ahead and flush the system. Now to do that, I'm going to give you a tech tip. You always want to bench bleed that master cylinder. How do you do it? It's real simple. Just take some lines, go ahead and string them up into the master cylinder, and then you can start bench bleeding it. I can show it to you right here in action. You just push in and out on it. Once you're doing that, you're getting all the bubbles and all the air out of those chambers I just showed you. Why do you want to do that? So you don't send them all down the line. Keep bleeding it till all the bubbles are gone. Now, when it comes to brakes, Len, peace of mind is key. Fluids too. You guys are all about peace of mind at Amsoil.
Yeah, that's correct. We look at the equipment and what its appetite, if you will, is for product itself, and then we adjust the formulary to suit those needs. So fuel additives, you're looking for deposits. For engine oils, we adjust it based on what it's going into. If it's a motorcycle, we're looking at clutch performance. We're always looking at general protection, but we like to adjust and adapt to that particular piece of equipment's needs. So peace of mind is big in Amsoil.
Now, you're not just a pretty face. You're also involved with this testing. You guys build engines and you do some rigorous testing.
That's correct. I'm directly involved with some of the testing, pick your product, and we test the heck out of it. We put it in situations that your average person is never going to put it in to be sure that the oil is performing as we describe.
Now, I said earlier, peace of mind is key. So if you want that peace of mind, just go to Amsoil.com.
We'll be right back with more Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com, so keep it locked here.
Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com. Industrial workbenches with integrated tool storage. And brought to you by PaintedAutoBodyParts.com, the leading U.S. auto body parts online store. Mag High Tech, differential covers and transmission bands. And by Performance Fabrication and Machining, ATV and side-by-side custom accessories.
Thanks for hanging with us here at Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com. A lot of folks write in about some things they've seen before on the show. We're going to pull this one out from the archives. We think you'll love it. Shock Therapy is the premier destination for off-road suspension tuning, and you're going to find out why. Now, Justin Smith started this company about a decade ago. And Justin, for the folks that may not know Shock Therapy, give an overview of what you guys do here.
You know, what we do is within the UTV and off-road industry, we pretty much make UTVs ride better, or for your particular needs. If you're a racer and you need to go fast, we can dial that in. If you're kind of a cruiser in the mountains, we can do that as well. So every time we touch one, we kind of make it exactly what that person wants.
And what was that evolution like? You know, word of mouth and everything. Where'd this all start? You're in a massive facility here.
As a matter of fact, it was in my 3-car garage and grew up very slowly over time. But when that started with just a small amount of people and us doing it ourselves, we really were able to touch every single customer perfectly. And we learned a lot about what they wanted. We were able to put that in all of our products today.
We see here in your shop, folks have brought their vehicles in for you to do the suspension on them. Now, folks are able to do that at your facility here and in North Carolina. What about folks that can't bring their vehicle in?
You know, we have a mail-in program that we call Shock in a Box. And everywhere in the United States and other countries, we get shocks in here to do the tuning for them. Australia, South Africa, and other countries that you may not even realize that UTVs are in, we get shocks from. But we're able to dial that in by having an appointment system. Every car you see in here and every shock that is mailed to us is scheduled for a specific day. So that customer knows that if their appointment is on the 3rd, they have their vehicle to us on the 2nd, it's done and it leaves on the 3rd. If it's mailed into us, it's done and it mails out on the 3rd. So shock internals, modifications, rebuilds, spring kits. We can do all the installation of rack and pinion, tie rod systems, radius rods, and other components. We make a lot of things to allow these vehicles to go faster than stock.
First of all, let's talk about the OE shocks and the OE suspension that's coming from the manufacturer.
The OEMs have to tune for the masses. Well, the fact is the masses aren't exactly all of us. We want to play with this stuff exactly the way we want it done. So we're able to tune UTVs to do the specific job for each individual's needs.
And these are the same parts you can find on the Mud Monster behind us, and also really this closer to stock vehicle as well. Different parts for different folks here.
Yes, a lot of people think that we just tune for race cars because the racers are the ones that typically break everything, but that's absolutely, couldn't be farther from the truth. We tune for the guy that drives super slow, retired on the weekend, and just does trail riding and wants to be relaxed and comfortable. Well, we also tune for things like this Mud Monster behind us that's completely on the other side of the spectrum that most people are never going to do. But where most of our components live is in that happy space between the two, where people need a little bit more out of their vehicle, and we make the parts to do that.
Let's talk about some of the components on this monstrosity back here, starting with the sway bar here. That's something we're going to find on there. How is that an upgrade from what might be stock on a UTV?
Factory UTVs typically have a lot of body roll, and a lot of people don't like that feeling when they enter into a corner, and sway bars typically fix that. Stops a lot of the body roll that you get when you enter a corner pretty quick. So sway bars can give a feeling of stability, safety, corner speeds typically will go up, but sway bars aren't the answer to everything. Fast desert driving might be a home run for sway bars, but on the East Coast with trail riding and slower speeds, independence might be the way to go. So no sway bar or disconnected sway bars for certain terrain in use, and stiffer sway bars and adjustability for others.
And after we're talking sway bar, what's another consideration here? You have the rack and pinion. How is this more beefy than what I might find on a stock UTV?
So usually the first accessory people put on their UTV is a set of wheels and tires. They more than likely weigh more than the factory system, and that extra weight puts a lot of stress on the steering and other suspension components. Factory rack and pinions tend to wear out pretty quick, and the last thing you want is a little slop in the steering. So we build completely in-house billet and high quality components inside of our rack and pinions. Rack and pinion systems typically that we make don't wear out over time and give a lot more stability to the vehicle as you start adding weight to it. Other things that we find as you kind of go through that progression of components that you had already mentioned, steering and tie rod systems. We've got tie rods saying here as well, and all of our tie rod kits are adjustable so that you can fix the geometry issues that you might run into with a list of the aftermarket accessories. Fix bump steer, which bump steer is a change in tow and comes back into the steering as feedback that most people don't want. And our tie rod kits fix that. Extension clunk is very, very common with UTVs, and a limit strap kit that we offer cures all of that so you don't wear out parts inside the shock as well. Other things that we have besides sway bars, sway bar links, are electronic shock upgrades. We've got a system called IQS, or Intelligent Quick Switch, which allows you to take a manually adjusted and tuned shock externally and make that electronic, where you can tune it on the fly on the dash so you can run soft and plush when you're going at slow speeds, or you can turn it up if you want to hit that jump or that G out a little bit too hard.
We are grateful to our friends at Shock Therapy and for all of our clients, and we're especially thankful for you for tuning in each week to Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com. We're going to do it again next week. We hope you join us then. From everyone here in the studio, so long and drive safely.